Hello, my name is Gavin Buckley. I'm here at the West Cork Arts Centre and I'm delighted to be joined by Mary A. Kelly, who is our current exhibiting artist here. So, hello, Mary.
Hello, Gavin.
Hey, um, can you give me a bit of background about yourself as an artist?
As an artist, um, the reason I started painting um, is a story in itself, because for many years ago, from the age of 14, I learned how to paint and draw with a man called Uillinn in Bray. It was the only place outside the College of Art you could do the exams, and I was lucky. He worked around the corner in the VUC, and I went to his classes. And I was absolutely passionate about painting and drawing, but it. I eventually went to college when I was 30, and I started with my love of painting and drawing, but by the time I'd finished, I'd been seduced by a more modern medium of video and installation. And the reason I loved video and photography and installation was because the other senses were involved. For example, sound, uh, time. There was a lot of other parts that I felt I couldn't explore in painting. So for the next 25, 30 years of my life, most of my work was lens-based.
Okay.
I used lens-based. So why have I come back to painting at this stage? For example, in a photographic video series titled The Landing in 2003, I was fascinated by the print or stamp each man made on his room in Portlaoise prison. In Asylum 2005, I hunted for marks left by patients on their space as a sort of survival instinct. In I Believe Help My Unbelief 2010, I recorded the baby grave arrangements lovingly created by parents in the Angels plot Glasnevin. But now I have a wish to leave my own mark directly, and that's the reason I returned to painting. In other words, in the cycle of life, there's a time for everything. I wanted to put my mark, I wanted to use my body in the expression of my work again. So this is the first time back into significant painting. I've always used drawing and painting at some level in the work that I do, but to actually do a show, a full show, that's why I'm painting at the moment.
Okay.
And it's very physical painting. That's why I love the size of the canvases that I'm using. I need to feel that the scale is very important part of this.
Okay, and can you tell me how your interest in this current project came about? What inspirations you drew from and things like that?
My interest in this project chair started actually many years ago while I was taking part in a group psychotherapy process. For example, the simplicity of the room and the depth of life experienced in that space led me to explore many similar rooms. To me, there was something very essential about that time, aside from life, where people, either two people or a group of people, sat down with no other accoutrements and explored themselves and each other in the most elemental way possible. And I suppose, if you like, I saw this as a stage that all the different things you do with life, the things that you go through, the people that you meet, the experiences you have, the stuff you accumulate, it all falls away at some level. And it's, I suppose, the place that you can just sit and think or really pull apart and question is one of the most sacred spaces, I think, in the world. So then, of course, I became interested in, if you like, this space outside of psychotherapy, which is life, where you take a chair, and there's a Buddhist saying, can you take the one seat? And what they believed was, Jack Kornfield, for example, in A Path with Heart, describes how taking the one seat in the centre of the room, opening the doors and windows and seeing who comes to visit. When we take the one seat in Buddhist meditation, it's said we become our own monastery. We create the compassionate space that allows for all things, including sorrow, loneliness, shame, desire, regret, frustration, and happiness. And I suppose the more of life I experience, the more questions I have, and the more awareness that these questions do not have simple answers. Michael Harding, in an article in the Irish Times titled "I wanted to warm my arse in freezing Warsaw, so I went to church," says that if anyone asked him why he was sitting in the back of a church in Warsaw, he says, I would have been stuck for words, because as the Asian proverb says, when you name the bird, you cease to experience the song. And this brings me to the titles of the works in the chair. They are a trace of something that the chairscape bears witness to. Between the painting and the title, there's a void or gap. There's a very big space. I wanted a very big space. I want the viewer to project into that space. I hope there's room for everything and anything in those spaces. So those titles are full worlds unto themselves. To me, they have a life as much as the painting has. And the painting has a life, and I haven't married them up neatly together, and that's quite self-consciously. These paintings, after all, are an imitation of life and not the real thing. Not even urinal status, to give Duchamp his due. Eventually, it's merely a nod to itself. The titles can distract, negate, illuminate, illustrate. Everything's there and nothing is there. And yet the need to stretch out the hand, create the mark, express the thing comes back time and time again. And that's why, as an artist, you go back. It's an impossible task. But there is something, you can never be the ultimate creator, and yet you have this terrible desire to create or put a mark down or a scratch down that blackboard. David Galloway, in his essay Singing to the Empty Chairs, notes a particularly touching homage to that chair made by Giacometti in 1963. Giacometti says, "I could spend the rest of my life simply drawing 2 chairs and a table. It would be necessary to sacrifice both the painting and sculpture and the head and everything, and reduce oneself to staying in a room in front of the same table, the same tablecloth and the same chair, and to do only that."
You've touched on your experiences you've had in life and how they've shaped you as an artist. How would you say you've implemented those experiences into this work?
Believe it or not, it's quite a hard thing to be a female artist.
Right.
And I'll give you some idea of that. When I was very young, I studied under a man called Jan Goulet from the age of 13. He was probably one of the only places that did full life drawing, and the only place you could do the County of Art exams in Ireland, actually. So by the time I was 18, I had done all those. And I absolutely loved drawing and painting, but as the oldest of 11 children and a female, there was absolutely no way I was going to art college back in 1974.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I left for the proverbial secretarial course, but that summer, as luck would have it, I got a fantastic job in the first nightclub in Dublin called Annabelle's, and I made a huge amount of money. So I rolled up to UCD and I put my money out and I said, I want to do psychology and philosophy. And you might think psychology and philosophy back in 1974, believe you me, were fairly esoteric disciplines that become much more mainstream now. They were 2 of the best things I could ever have done, because they inform everything in my life. They've informed my art, everything, my way of life, everything that I ever did. So that was in fact my first degree. But the other thing I'd say I might say that because of circumstances I couldn't go to art college. I don't think I was mature enough. I think it's a brutally hard thing to come out at 18 years of age and start inventing the wheel, so to speak, when you have very little experience of life. So what happened to me was, at the in-between time, from the time I finished my degree in UCD to the age of 30, I had what can only be described as a lot of life experience. And it was really, one of those things was losing my first child, because he died at birth. And when John died, I had an overwhelming need to start creating again. but I didn't want to do it in a part-time flimsy basis. I needed to go back to college and really immerse myself, and that's what I did. So that's how I went back to, that's how I started formally in art college at that age. And a little bit later actually, because in fact I had 3 children by the time I started. I was 31, and I went back to study art in the only place in the country at the time where you could do it at night time, which was in Dunleary College of Art. And the next 6 years I studied art because it had to be broken down for access, but we did more tuition in subjects to kind of cover the time. I wasn't there to get a degree, I was there to learn as much as I could, and it was a very formative, exciting time in my life. And it was like, for me, it was like a fish finding the sea. It was, I had found home. It was absolutely terribly important to me, and a wonderful part of life, very important for me, part of life. So as I said, and I described probably somewhere else, that I went to college, went in with painting and drawing, loving it, passionate about it, and then became seduced by something else, which was video. I then did a degree in film, because since I was interested and doing a lot of video, I felt I needed to learn the craft of where this had come from, which is film. So I made a short film which went around the various to different countries for the festivals, and that was a great experience because it was sort of the nuts and bolts of that industry, which seemed a million miles away from fine art video or film, by the way. But what I didn't pursue that because I felt it was really about entertainment. I had absolutely no interest in entertaining. That is not the purpose of my art. It's much more, I suppose that I would come much more from a philosophical background. It's a questioning tool, it's an exploring tool, and entertaining to me, even though it has its place, was not what I was about. So then I went back to NCAD and did my master's in fine art again. The courses I did were almost irrelevant. It just gave me the chance to make work, really, in everything that I did. I had no need to, the degree status or whatever wasn't important. And so that's how I came to be an artist. As a female artist, you come up against, the statistics are still quite brutal, about how you're represented, how you're bought, the value of your work, etc. Even to this day, and I'm not going to go into the statistics here. And I would have felt that along the way, not in the colleges, because there was always a huge freedom. It's when you come out of college. But somehow, and I think it's sheer need, allowed me to continue and do the work that I needed to do, which is the most important thing to me.
I also got a chance to speak with Tom McCullen, who created work based off Mary A. Kelly's chair. Tom's work is designed to be an interactive experience aimed towards children and families. Okay, now I'm here with Tom McCullen, who does a discovery box as part of the exhibition. Can you explain a bit about that, Tom?
Well, Discovery Box is, and really it's a kind of invitation for kids and their carers to come into the gallery and feel like the gallery is their own. So I'm making objects that are helping them to really explore the gallery as well as the things that are in the gallery. And there's a kind of various objects that are in this discovery box.
Okay. Can you give me an example of one of those?
So one of the first things that I made was this little yellow chair. It's really light, so children can carry it around the gallery and they can sit in front of the different paintings. But it's really influenced by Van Gogh's little yellow chair that a lot of people would have seen in the painting. When I'm making the Discovery Box, I'm thinking about children's needs, but I'm also thinking about what will inspire play between adults and children. So maybe the carers here would think about Van Gogh's little chair. think about some of the kind of things that they know about Van Gogh and his experience, and the kind of mental health, psychological side of that experience would be something that is maybe a more hidden part of this exhibition, something that you might not immediately take up, but it kind of references that the type of stories that Mary is actually really talking about in terms of this psychology.
So did you, before you made all these, did you kind of talk with Mary for a while before because she obviously had her exhibition done, and then you were did you talk to her and try to incorporate how you can make this possible for kids and how it can relate and all that?
So the process is that first of all I was sent the images, and then I was sent a little bit of information about the exhibition, so I have time to kind of think a little and muse a little on that. And then I came into the gallery and had a cup of coffee with Mary, and we chatted big time. We're both talkers, so we both really enjoyed the chat about the different kind of things that she'd like to bring out of the paintings and the conversations that she'd like to stimulate. And also I came along to Mary's talk here, so it's nice to hear the artist talking about their work and bring out maybe some of the things that might not be so on the first looking, you know, that you wouldn't automatically think about these paintings.
I'd like to give a huge thank you to Mary and Thomas for their time. If you have any interest in seeing this exhibition yourself, please call in to us. It runs until December 12th, 2019. For any inquiries, you can phone us on 028 22090 or email us at info@westcorkartscentre.com. Chair Mary A. Kelly is a solo exhibition curated and initiated by Uillinn, Director, Highlands Gallery, Drogheda, and presented in partnership with Uillinn West Cork Arts Centre and Custom House Studios. The exhibition is generously supported by the Arts Council Touring and Dissemination Ward and is sponsored by Anglo Printers Drogheda. West Cork Arts Centre is supported by the Art Council, Cork County Council and Department of Social Protection.